It's Monday, and I am your host, Eric Mitchell, coming to you from To The Point Broadcast Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon. Got a heck of a show for you. Hopefully you had a good weekend. It was a crazy news weekend. Coronavirus very much still in the news, as it has been for what feels like 787 days. It's only been 8 weeks, and when I say only, that's a hell of a long time. We saw over the weekend that both China and Japan reported higher, I don't even know how they use the word higher, but a new outbreak of the coronavirus. I know, shocking. China said it was done, yet now they're reporting new cases. And in fact, our friends over at Epoch Times have reported this story that the numbers from confidential documents that they've been able to get hands on say that they're reporting workers only like 30 are sick, but hundreds are actually sick, and yet we're not being told the truth. I know it's not a surprise to any of us that follow this story and have been following the story, as the coronavirus is completely controlled in other countries because everybody's in a rush to open everything up. Speaking of opening everything back up, again, last week we had the Dallas salon owner released after the state Supreme Court said that she couldn't be held for that. She's now done haircuts for everybody, which is now causing this rampage across the country for everybody to start rebelling and going to restaurants. Yesterday in Colorado, footage came out of a brunch that people had no idea what social distancing were. They were just on their own thing, not a mask in sight. And this comes on the heels of hearing that several members of the team, that the coronavirus team, including Dr. Fauci, are self-quarantining after over 12 members of the Secret Service, 2 more members of Vice President Pence's staff have tested positive. Now, you will remember in the last 2 weeks, the president and vice president, leading from the front, have been traveling all across America, not wearing masks, not wearing gloves, and saying they don't need to. And now their Secret Service staff is coming down ill. Their staffers are ill. And our friends at mainstream media, they don't even want to report this because it's election season and hey, it's not important. We also have reports that New York is going to attempt to reopen. I mean, we have this, folks. Let's just be real. Everyone is talking about needing to reopen our country. And yes, you're correct. We should open our country. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that safety is of others. So I think a quick fix that people need to understand is if you fit certain brackets where you could get coronavirus, then you should stay your butt at home. The rest of us, we should go out and maintain what we need to maintain. Yes, I know the arrows in the grocery stores are quite frustrating, and I know having to wear a mask sucks. I personally don't like wearing one, and any chance I don't have to wear one, I don't. But it's hypocritical when you look at our leadership. They don't wear them either. In sports news, I don't know if you were able to catch the UFC this weekend. It was fabulous. It was great to see live sports TV. UFC had their big fights down in Jacksonville. At the last minute, they did have one of their big title card bouts have to be cut from it because the fighter and his corner tested positive. I think this is something that we're going to have to get used to, as we also learned Friday after we went off air that the NBA commissioner, the staff, and many of the players from around the NBA jumped on a conference call. They were talking about the season and getting it started. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was very, very to the point when he said we can't start a season. We don't have enough protocols in place. Remember, the NBA played inside compared to our friends in college football, pro football, baseball, Major League Soccer. They all are played outdoors. It's a little bit easier to spreading. Also, it's easier when you have 76,000 seats instead of 18,000 seats. It's a little hard to put us all separated. Then you have to deal with season ticket holders and all that wonderful mess. The NBA did stress that their target is July, have a season go until about October, and then restart it in December and move forward with that schedule. Moving forward, again, they can't even say when fans will be allowed. And I know a lot of the players, they don't like that. That is a huge sticking point to them at this time. And you're seeing that throughout the leagues. Also on Friday, Major League Soccer allowed their players to return to voluntary workouts. And we're going to have our own Jeff Attila here on Wednesday to report what that was like. They did play Frozen, several Frozen songs about remember the last time that they did this. Remember, it was 8 weeks since they actually had been able to go to a ballpark or a training facility to do anything. Portland Trail Blazers, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Denver Nuggets also returned to their training facilities for the first time on Friday. The reports from the players are very entertaining. They have to get their temperature taken. They have to immediately after taking their temperature, go over to a sink and wash their hands and their face. And then they don't leave their stuff behind. They have to bring it. So they're treated like normal people going to the gym. They have to do the same thing. So they went through that. It was interesting hearing how their feedback about it. Only 2 players on the court at a time. They were all broken up in 90-minute increments. So a lot of these teams are very close. It's been a lot of time on the road. You've got to think about Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL. They spend 82 to 162 games together at a minimum. That's a lot of time on the road, flying, traveling, hotels. Now you've kept these guys the last 8 weeks where they don't really get to hang out. I know here in Portland, Carmelo Anthony and CJ McCollum have been jogging together, again, maintaining social distance, but they haven't been able to hang out as a team, work together as a team, all the things that make a team a team. And then as we get ready to go into the show, I do want to cover something that has come up over the weekend. And we talked about it Friday. And it's very important to me to bring this out to the open. We've been talking about Ahmaud Arbery out of Georgia. Now, 2 white men, a father and son, were arrested. Now, the stories that keep coming out by mainstream media really want to downplay what this was. This was an assassination of a man jogging. Again, it's 2020, but yet America still loves to bring race to it. He was a burglar dressed in jogging gear, carrying nothing that said he was stealing anything. He was just running down the street. So does that mean if I suspect anybody who just walked away from my house where it says no soliciting, I should hop into my Toyota Tacoma, grab my son, grab a shotgun, and go shoot them because they could have been a robber? No, my friends, this is America. That's not how it's done. We have a justice system. So save your race card, your MAGA hat, any other thing that you need to do that makes you think that you can tell America how it's done. Stop being racist. That's the easiest thing that we can tell you. Stop being racist assholes. Simple. Haha, that's the news for you, right? Hey, we don't have to figure this out. Don't be racist. Don't shoot people. Just because somebody that's not you running down the street doesn't make them a burglar. Probably makes them a jogger. If they're on a bike, guess what? They're a bicyclist. All these things make common sense, except in Georgia, they seem to be very confused, followed by their friends in Alabama and, of course, in Florida. Come on, America. And for those folks in mainstream media who have hopped on the pulpit of defending these 2 scumbags who murdered this man. I'm talking to you, Tommy Loren. You came out and said, oh, poor him, poor the people. Oh, this, you don't know the whole story. You know what? Sit down and stop getting ratings and going to Twitter. I don't know what it is about you going on there, but come on, you're a hack. Go back to doing whatever it is. Go back to Blaze TV. Oh, wait a minute. They fired you. It's just so frustrating watching mainstream media these days. These people just have no idea what they're doing. They just say stupid shit for ratings. It drives me nuts, especially when it comes to racism in our country. It's disgusting. It's been going on so long, and we need to do something about it. It should be one of the biggest issues that faces the 2020 election. We need to stop racism. You're welcome. That's my Monday rant for you. So let's get to the news. Actually, not the news, but let's get to the point. It's Monday, so you know what that means. That means my good buddy George Bryant, George the Lighthouse Bryant, is here today to join us. And we're going to talk about small business tips and tricks that your brand can be using going back. You're going to have to go back to the old days. I'm not saying go back to the Rolodex. We don't need the Michael Scott power Rolodex. But what you do need to do is know that email still works and you need to reach out. So I'm bringing my buddy George on again for his weekly tips and tricks for you small business owners out there. Let's welcome to the show, my good buddy George. What's up, bud?
How's it going, my friend? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Did you have a good weekend? I saw you traveling all over the place this weekend.
I did. I flew for the first time, and it was a very eerie experience, to say the least. And And it had quite a juxtaposition. I left Reno and I was the only one in the airport, and I was on an A320 with 12 people, where they were socially distancing. In first class, we sat next to each other, but in the back of the plane, they had to have 8 feet apart, which was a really weird thing. And then I landed in Phoenix, and Phoenix had just opened up, and there were 25,000 people at the airport. And I would have thought nothing had ever happened. I had to wait 30 minutes for a car to pick me up because it was so busy. And so it was really, really interesting. And then I road tripped like 10 hours, and I got to see like different parts of the world. I ate at a restaurant in Vegas for the first time.
I saw that. I was envious.
Yes, it was an amazing burger. But yeah, it's definitely really interesting. It created a little bit of I don't want to say like dissonance, but it's like what I see in the world and what everybody's been talking about versus like when I actually left the house for the first time. It was really interesting to see it across the country and the small part that I went to. But yeah, it was interesting.
I was following you. I noticed you were TikToking a bunch too. So
I got yelled at because I decided to park my Jeep on the Vegas Strip and dance on the roof because there was nobody there. And so I got yelled at, but I got the shot. It was good. I made some people smile, which is what it's all about.
That's all that matters. Making the people smile and entertaining those of us at home who are not on the Vegas Strip dancing on the roof of our Jeep. So yeah, that's good stuff. We enjoyed it. So let's get into the fun here. So we're in we're going into week 9.
I think
now.
week 9. Yeah.
Week 9, and brands are getting, they're feeling it now. I've heard a lot of small business owners like, okay, how do I go out and reach businesses, right? I mean, and I know we've talked about it the last few weeks, but you and we had a good conversation last week, and we were talking about email, like good email blasts, and using social to reach out to people to separate yourself from all the other brands that are out there. So what advice do you have to folks? Like, some people are going to say email blast. Oh God, that means you're going to start spamming people. So fill us in on what you mean by it.
Yeah. So here's where we are. We're living in the new norm that we've created in the last 8 weeks, right? And so a lot of businesses have had to pivot in the last 8 weeks. And by pivoting, what we really had to do is we had to connect with our customers. We had to go deep with them. We had to communicate. We had to respond. We had to keep them abreast of what we were going through. We had to be transparent and authentic. And what a lot of businesses, I think, have failed to realize is that they recreated the new norm, the new paradigm moving forward. And this is going to be how business is done in digital marketing and in retail marketing moving forward, because people aren't out of the weeds. I guess some things are opening up, but we're talking about stimulus checks, 14.7% unemployment rate. And the only thing people want to know is that somebody has their back. And so what I've been seeing a lot of is the businesses that have understood like, oh, this is where we focus now. Oh, we always have to focus on going deep with customers, on communicating, on answering questions, on being transparent and authentic, are going to thrive because they have that loyalty when it's in there. I've seen other brands in the last 2 weeks of like, oh, my business is coming back, or people are buying my product, and they fell right back to old patterns and they're hurting really, really, really bad. And so what I want everybody to understand is that what has happened in all of this, in this pandemic or whatever the hell you want to call it, is people got their eyes opened up to all the ways in which marketing wasn't really there. It was transactional. It was almost like frivolous. Like, I didn't need this. And people would buy things for the wrong reasons. And with the state of the world, that's not going to happen anymore. And so the only way that you're going to be able to win with marketing is to have deep connected relationships with your customers. And so for me, it's easily defined. I define marketing as a two-way, value-based, long-term relationship. And that has to be the norm moving forward. And I have a process like on your social media and things that I'll share in a minute, but I want to just let everybody know that as we talk about a lot of this, it doesn't matter the modality of communication. It matters the intention for the communication. And people are still going to buy. People are still going to buy products. They're still going to want supplements and skincare and services, and people are going to be itching for it more. But their decision process isn't necessarily going to be predicated on the features and benefits anymore. It's going to be predicated on the depth of the relationship and kind of the safety they feel with the company that has the product.
Can you guys hear me okay?
I couldn't hear you, but I'm going to go into it anyways because I love this.
I don't know. I had a mic problem.
I can hear you now, though.
Perfect. So what I was saying was, it's weird that happened. What I was saying is it's funny how traditional businesses have resisted changing over to social. You still see them fighting, using social media, truly using digital marketing. And in fact, and our next guest is going to cover this. In fact, even using public relations and media to get their word out there. I don't understand it. They seem hesitant. Like, I don't know. Like, how do you think your message is going to get out there to the general public? I mean, you're looking at brands like Peloton, Beach. I'll even bring up some multi-level marketing companies, Beachbody. You've got other sales companies and apparel companies like Zaya, which we'll hear about a little bit later. All these brands are killing it, having record numbers because they're taking it to social. And then you have these other brands that are like, we're not doing social. We're going to drive traffic to our website.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I'm just going to call it as it goes straight for the jugular. It's because they're afraid of seeing the truth. They're afraid of having the ability for a customer to connect with them where they can't protect it behind the door. And the truth is that that's where the secret to business is getting feedback, being in a relationship, and pivoting as much as possible to get to the point, little pun intended there, to get to the point of what it is that you're offering and having the best experience for your consumers. And so when we think about social media, you know, I see a lot of companies do this wrong. The purpose of social media is not to get attention. The purpose of social media is to connect with the right people and use it to bring them one step closer to your business or to your brand. And cats and dogs, they're great for attention. They don't attract customers. They give you wrong skewed data. And so I have 4 easy step method that's really easy for every single social media post that you ever do. And because I'm nautical themed with the Lighthouse, the acronym is SEAA, SEAA. And the purpose is every single social post you do, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's TikTok, S stands for stop. You have 3 seconds to get somebody's attention. 3 seconds. You got to get them to stop. You just need them to pattern interrupt for 1 second. And then E is enroll. And once you've gotten somebody's attention, you have to enroll them into what you have to offer, not convince them like most marketing will teach you, but enroll them so they choose to be there and want to be there. The third step is aspire. Once you've gotten them to stop and they're enrolled, they've self-identified. They want to be in your world. They want to work with you. But now you have to get them to aspire to go where you are going to take them, whether it's to lose weight or buy a supplement or have a service. They have to be able to see themselves possibly achieving that goal in order to stay there on your social. And then the third A is action. Once you've gotten them to stop, you've enrolled them that they want to be here, they like what you're putting down, and then they're aspiring to get there, then you give them a specific next step to help them get there. And the biggest mistake that I see companies making across the board with digital marketing in general is that at every touch point, we're training our customers on how to be our customers. So if you've been posting on Instagram, let's say, for 12 weeks and every single post is an awesome post, but there's no question, there's no calls to action, you just trained your customers to never engage with you. If you've been posting for 12 weeks and you've never asked them to comment, well, now you've trained them to never comment and you can't get upset that they don't comment. So I always follow those 4 steps. SEAA, stop, enroll, aspire, and action, which means that every single thing you're putting out into the world is either helping you learn about your customers or serving them by moving them one step closer to their potential goal or the service or product that your businesses offer to help them get there.
Sound advice. I love that. George, I want to thank you for coming on today. For folks you want to connect with George and learn more about George and his team and sign up for everything, go check out www.mindofgeorge.com. You can find him on YouTube. Got great YouTube channel. Go check out George Bryant on YouTube. He needs some subscribers to go while you're giving us love subscribing. Give his a click too. You can check him out on Instagram and Twitter at It's George Bryant. It's so simple to get a hold of him. Message him, subscribe, follow, share, tell a friend. And if your small business needs help, truly, George is the guy, as you can tell. That's why we have him back every week. He's here every Monday to give us your small business insider information. So, George, I want to thank you for coming on, bud, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks. So, we have our next guest coming up right after these messages. If you watch Fox News or any mainstream news outlet, you have seen our next guest for sure. She is truly amazing, a great publicist, PR, social media. She does a little bit of everything, simply fabulous on TV, has great insider, and she's out of New York. So she's got great insight, and she's been leading the way talking about the coronavirus. She specializes in working with doctors and people in the medical field and getting out what's going on behind the scenes that we're not told about. But let's talk a little bit about Kris Ruby. She is an award-winning social media agency. She runs a social media award-winning agency out of New York. She has more than 12 years of experience in the social media industry. You've seen her on networks, like I said before, Fox, CNN, Newsmax, RT America, Cheddar. She's been there. She's awesome. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Kris Ruby. How you doing, Kris?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, Eric.
It's Monday. Another fun Monday. I think, like I said, it's like day 822. I make up new dates every day because I know we're like on week 9, but it just feels like we've been doing this for way too long. And I know you and I have been texting nonstop during this when they sent the National Guard into your hometown for the first time before they locked down everybody else. So
Yes.
how have you been during coronavirus?
Been okay. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I mean, I'm in Westchester County in White Plains, so things have changed substantially here. With the ebb and flow of everything with coronavirus. So we're watching it all play out in real time.
So is your city open now? I know you were kind of the epicenter for a moment. And they called the National Guard in. Has everything kind of died down, or is it still pretty active?
Yeah, I mean, so I believe that cases are continuing to go down here, but I did see something over the weekend that I think there is a spike with people sort of, as there's this increase of wanting to reopen, there has been a direct correlation with increases in coronavirus cases. So that is, of course, the problem that's playing out here and going to play out everywhere on a national scale.
So you are a resident PR expert. I know I leaned on you when I want PR advice. You truly are a leader of our industry. So let me ask you, and we see a lot of folks doing this throughout, and I call it, coronavirus jacking or COVID-19 news jacking. It always happens. I mean, we've even seen it with school shootings or anything. People will news jack. So, it's not bad to do it. Some people do it and it makes sense. But how do you do it right? I mean, and how do you do it wrong? Kind of tell folks the good way and the bad way to newsjack.
Yeah, so I think that you have to really have an organic brand tie-in in order to do newsjacking properly. I think that if you're looking to sort of just capitalize on press and then you don't follow up with that afterwards with an ongoing campaign and ongoing PR tactics, that is obviously doing it the wrong way. But again, if you have something that organically ties into this and you can truly add value, and if you can, help, for example, with donating products to frontline healthcare workers or anyone on the front line, really, I think that is a great way to do it. What we're also seeing is that it's not just about donating. You have to donate at scale. So if you look at what brands are making it into the media from a PR perspective right now, they're not brands that are just donating one or two or even a few hundred things. They are brands that are donating thousands upon thousands of products to healthcare workers. So I think that is definitely a great takeaway and tip for your viewers, that if you are looking to try and get in the media right now, you have to be thinking much larger scale than just a few products.
I love that. That is true. You see a lot of people just kind of faking it till they make it, or just some other people have just laid up and just said, I'm not going to do anything during Corona. I'm just going to let it wear out. And I just don't understand. I mean, why would anyone ever decide to just not do anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's really strong brand leadership. I think this is the time where if you're interested at all in becoming a thought leader in your industry, everyone can be a thought leader right now. I mean, look at accountants, for example. We are depending as small business owners on accountants every single day for their insight and leadership into the Paycheck Protection Program and all of the different loans that are happening. And there's massive PR opportunities, not not just because they are looking for media, but because what they have to say can truly add value to thousands of small business owners across the country. And so that's really the way I think you should be approaching PR right now. What can I say? Who can I say it to? And how can I be helpful in this situation?
So let's talk about it. We talked about agencies and owning. As a small business, we all go through this. We have clients, right? And obviously, we're still working. But I know they're out there. I've talked to a lot of business owners, and we have these new toxic coronavirus clients, right? They come in and think because it's COVID-19 time that none of the rules apply to them. Your contracts are basically bunk. How do you get around these toxic people who think that we don't do our jobs, everybody needs to be discounted? That's not how it's going. The grocery store isn't discounting right now. Car dealerships are not discounting their cars. No one is discounting their services. So why should a small business discount to take on what we all know as business owners, a toxic client?
Yeah, Eric, so I think that's a great question. And I think, unfortunately, one of the challenges that we're seeing right now is that the economy and these times during the pandemic are impacting small business owners and pricing and, people saying, I want a coronavirus special, right? So the problem is, as small business owners, many of us have already laid off staff or, don't have other people to even assist with this work. So even if they wanted to offer a discount, they couldn't, right? And so we are still doing the same volume of work or more. But people are asking business owners to operate at a lower price for less. And so I think you have to really think about, is that reasonable? Is it realistic? And as small business owners during a pandemic, I think this notion of self-care is important. And no, I'm not talking about you should take a bath or you should put on a face mask for self-care. I'm talking about psychological self-care. How can you make sure you don't end up in a really bad situation where you're in a toxic relationship with a client and you feel like, I'm kind of disrespected every day. I don't really like how this feels. I'm dreading working for this person. And that starts with your contract. It starts with adding in something into your contract, which actually lays out what does respect look like for you. And this is something that I'm actually doing right now with all of our contracts with clients, where I'm redoing them to say, this is an example of what respect is. For example, we're adding in a too many cooks in the kitchen clause. Right? That means you're laughing, right? Because I know what I'm talking about here. It means if you hire me to do a job, you're going to listen to what I'm telling you to do. You don't have to follow all of it, but you're going to let me do my job. It means you're not going to hire 5 other agencies while you're working with me. It means baseline levels of professional respect will exist in this relationship, because a major issue that I'm seeing right now is that if you look at an employer and employee, they have contracts which protect them. Freelancers, in a way, have contracts which also protect them. But if you look at vendors and agencies, we virtually have almost nothing that protects us other than just leaving the client relationship. And I am on a mission to change that. And for more business owners who are in that middle area, like I'm talking about, to feel protected with their mental health, because I think that's more important than anything else right now during this time. Because if you don't have that, which, by the way, many people don't, if you had mental health care, you're no longer seeing whoever was helping you during this time. You're basically on your own, right? You really need to protect how you are feeling every single day. And the best way to do that is to protect who you allow into your life with who you're working with.
So well said. We could talk about this topic for days, because we all have to add these. And I did laugh. You're right, because it's so true. The respect factor. I know we actually have in our contract. It's not called the respect factor. I forget how we have it worded, but it's a two-way street, right? You also have, as a client, you also have things that you have to do to follow the rules to make sure it gets done. And, I know it's popular. I mean, you're right. As agency owners, as a vendor, we really aren't protected. I mean, people at any time can shortchange whatever they want, and they expect it whenever. And especially working in the media like you and I do, we both understand the game. It's very frustrating. It's very uncontrolled. People are like, I want to be on on this day. And you're just like, yeah.
Well, and it's so unrealistic. And the other thing I'll say about that is that I'm noticing a huge change right now from people like myself or you, where, traditionally we were considered mainstream guests on national networks all the time. So something major happened during these 2 months of the pandemic, which is that we said, wait a second, why do I want to be a guest when I could be a creator? right? And we took the power back. And you're going to have thousands of people across this country saying, wait a second, I'm going to take the power back. I can host my own show. I can launch a podcast. I can do all this stuff. I don't need to wait for someone to call me. I'm going to click record myself. And that's what you're going to see change right now.
You hit the nail on the head. I couldn't agree with you more on that. It's great to see. In fact, I went out because, as you know, we've been building this show as the plane's going down the runway, I like to say. Went to go look for a part because we have a new camera. It's debuting today. And I needed a little cable. Do you know the hardest thing to find are cables that go into really nice cameras? People are filming, people are creating, and they're sick of the news. That's why people tune into our show. And they don't even have to tune into it live. That's what's great about creating this and putting these shows out in these podcasts is people can listen and go get what they want. And we have great platforms. YouTube is fabulous. And you have Instagram TV, you have Facebook, and it reaches everybody. And they can watch when they want. They consume the content when they want, and they get the news they want that's not controlled by a lobbyist or these talking heads that used to be you and I, where we can actually share the story. Instead, it's these high-level people. And no disrespect to Mark Cuban, but I'm overseeing him on my TV all the time. He's a multi-billionaire who's probably going to try to run for president in the next, 6 years. I generally believe that's why he's on TV buying TV time, just like everybody else. I mean, we just see the same faces, same places, and we're just all creating to give people the news. So, Kris, thank you so much for coming on. We need to have you on more often. Definitely need to see you around these parts more often.
Yes, I'd be happy to come back on. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Thank you, Kris. We'll see you real soon.
Okay.
Thanks. I love having other people in my profession on our show because it's so refreshing to hear that we're not in two different boats rowing down the sea together. So we will have our next guest coming up right after these messages. Now coming to us live from Studio B at the To The Point Studios. I just made all of this up as we go. We have our next guest, Lucie Mitchell. She is the CEO and co-founder of LifeLit Media. She is a health and wellness motivator. She also doubles as she's my wife. I almost said she's my rock. She's my Robin to Batman, but I probably should say she's Batman and I'm Robin. But we're going to welcome Lucie Mitchell to the show. Hello.
I feel like you had to pause there. She's my wife.
Well, I had to come up with a good title. I mean, we had Rachel on last week. Of course, my sister, your sister-in-law.
I don't think there's any better title than wife. Oh, and FYI, that clause that we have is called client responsibilities. So sorry, it's not fancy. I do feel that in one of our old titles, it had mutual indemnification something, but now it's just called client responsibilities.
Now you're cheating and using big words that now I'm
I looked that up for you.
Thank you for looking that up. So you're back this week, and it's funny because you're our guest now in health and wellness, and then we have a Carnivore MD on next. And that's why you guys aren't in two boxes together talking at the same time, because I don't want to hear the bickering over the diet. Paul already hears that enough anytime he goes anywhere and talks about it. But he has a great book, and we're going to talk about that when he's on. So you and I were talking, and we see this, and I see it everywhere, and I always ask you this question. And it's going to be a double question because I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to ask Paul because I want to hear both your answers. But we talk about fasting, right? You see fasting everywhere. Everybody talks about it. Like it's some cool fad thing to do. You turn on Instagram, and everybody's talking about it. Number one, why would anybody want to fast? And two, what are the perks of doing it? Obviously there's some dangers in it. You have to be very careful with it and follow it. It's not just something that you're like, hey, today I'm not going to eat for 24 hours. So kind of tell folks like the perks, the good and the bad of fasting.
Okay, I'm not a resident expert in fasting. So I can give you like the regular old layman's housewife, what I do. I'm not a big breakfast person. Intermittent fasting goes all the way back to the caveman days. There was a reason why they intermittent fasted their butts needed to get back into the cave before the dinosaurs came out and ate them. They did not have grocery stores. They did not have food, refrigerators, food readily available at their disposal. So they ate at certain periods of the time. This is why diets like the caveman diet or paleo or those types of ways of eating are very popular even today and actually give you the best results because they lean you out. Intermittent fasting gives your body the opportunity to process, basically slow down and I'm thinking of a word and it's not coming to my brain right now, but basically like when you sleep, like breakfast is to break your fast. So when you are sleeping, your body is in recovery mode. It is revitalizing itself. You can intermittent fast for a certain number of hours. There's anywhere from the 16 where it's basically you eat for 8 hours and you fast for 16, which is normal. We are working 8 hours of the day. We are doing things for a certain number of days and then we are resting or, the fasting part. But some people for religious reasons will fast for 24 hours, 48 hours. Then there's some that will do a 40-day fast, a longer period. I couldn't do it. But for the conventional sense of the word, you don't need to be eating constantly. So it gives your body time to process all those nutrients that you've taken in and give your body time to process the fats, the proteins, and the carbs the way it needs to and eliminate the rest.
I was taking notes.
Yeah, don't take notes. I mean, it's just basic layman terms. Like I said, I'm not an expert in that. I am not a breakfast person. I typically don't eat anything for me until about 1 o'clock. So I am a faster in the sense that I try to eat my last meal at 7. But right now, we are in a different state. We're a state of influx. What is a normal schedule? I was just having this conversation even with my mother-in-law, your mother, yesterday when we were having this conversation. And she wanted me to actually even talk about this. I said, this is really hard to do when it comes to having a schedule. And I actually did some research today to even think about this, is normally we are getting up in the morning and we are taking our kids to the bus or we're taking our kids to school. We are getting ready to go to our offices. We are at a state of normalcy. Right now, we don't. So even something like intermittent fasting, those hours probably look different than normal. Like we're eating at 8, 9 o'clock at night because it's like, wait a second, where do I need to go? My kid needs to get up, roll out of bed and sit at a computer and do their e-learning. I need to roll up and maybe put on a top. I could guarantee you have a business suit on completely 100% right now. Who knows? Do I? Probably not. So it's hard to stick to those kind of regimens. It's great for your system. It gives you energy. It gives your body time to recover, which is amazing, especially when you're doing intermittent fasting. You're usually doing very hard and strenuous workouts. And that's where it benefits because you're doing things like CrossFitting and marathon running and marathon type trainings. And that's where you need your body that 16 hours to really recover and give your muscles and your bloodstream and everything time to really process all that you've done to it. That's where it's really beneficial. If you're just sitting all day long, probably not a good idea.
Well, there are a lot of people who do sit around all day. I know people have been talking about it and kiddingly have called things like, the COVID-20 or whatever. Everybody's talking about gaining weight during this time. So before you go, tell folks some inside information when it comes. So just your general thoughts on what you believe. And I hear you giving advice to your friends. Talk about how to motivate yourself to get up and just work out, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. There's a lot of free things that people can go access and do to feel better and be part of a community. and work out as groups. So, I mean, do you have any recommendations?
I do. First of all, for your mindset is 100% most important. You need to go to websites like Calm, Headspace, Meditate Me. Definitely download those apps and start with your mindset. You're not going to be able to do anything else if it's not right there in your mind. And start with, like, if your meditation is not your thing, you could start. They literally have 1-minute meditations, and meditation is not my thing. I start thinking about a grocery list or things I want to be doing rather than this. Next is there are plenty of YouTube videos. There are online communities. You can even search Facebook groups. You could just type in up in that little search bar, workout. All different types of online accountability groups will pop up. I just heard the other day that Beachbody, you can I think it's 3030. You can text and you will get free access to their online workouts. They have over $8,000. I think Carl said you would get to Insanity, which I don't know who would want to do that. Shanti, I love him to death, but 21-day fix. Things like that, you could totally have access to. I'm actually a part-time Beachbody coach, so you could also reach out to me. I could help you and get you set up an accountability group. Also, Peloton. Peloton has a free app, and they have strength training, yoga. If you have a Peloton bike or any type of stationary bike, you do not have to have a Peloton bike in order to do that, because you could do the rides from a phone or an iPad. Cycle Bar also has a online community that you can access free virtual workouts. So there's so much out there that you can do, as well as I think even on your smart TV, there are apps on your smart TV for workouts. And there's even family workouts, which I highly recommend getting your little ones involved. Right now, we need a sense of community. So my daughter even was just painting rocks, and we're going to go and kind of like hide these rocks as she painted them with nail polish, bright pink. And she put like hope, humanity, positivity. She just put these beautiful words on there. That is something that is, it's outside activity. It's getting a walk. You are practicing social distancing because you are hiding these rocks, but then you're just doing something positive that's going to uplift you. And then, of course, make yourself a wonderful, refreshing smoothie and watch something uplifting and positive with your family. It's just kind of like a full circle thing.
That is some solid information. Thank you, my dear. As usual, you're awesome. I can call you my dear, and I can call you all.
We're going to do all that stuff later.
I know. I could call you all the things. I just know people needed to chime in. Oh, by the way, just so you know, some folks on social media are letting you know that the cavemen and dinosaurs were not around at the same time together.
Sure they were.
In case you were wondering. So anyways, Lucie, I want to thank you for, of course, jumping on from our other studio.
Missing the point.
Yes.
Thank you. Tell them I appreciate your input.
So folks, if they need to get a hold of you or follow you, they can go to LucieMitchell.com or follow you on Insta. Your Instagram is lucie.e.mitchell on Insta. So go follow her. Thanks again for joining us. Coming up next after the message, we have the one and only Carnivore Doc with his amazing book, The Carnivore Code. We're going to learn about that and get his insight into the coronavirus pandemic. Coming up next. So our next guest, I definitely know you've seen him on TV. You've seen him everywhere. You've probably heard of the caveman diet or the carnivore diet. Our good buddy Joe Rogan talked about this back in October, which seems like so long ago, and it really wasn't, but thanks to this virus. So our next guest is a doctor, a legitimate MD. Dr. Saladino is the leading authority on science and application of the carnivore diet. As you can tell, I'm plugging the hell out of this book right here. So if you see it, you can go on Amazon and get it. But he has written several books, been on numerous podcasts, including The Minimalist, The Model Health Show, Bulletproof Radio, the Dr. Gudry podcast, the Ben Greenfield podcast, Doctor's TV show, and he just released this first book in 2020 called The Carnivore Code, Unlocking the Secrets to Optimal Health by Returning to Our Ancestral Diet. That is one hell of a title. So let's welcome to the show my good bud, the Carnivore Doctor. Paul, how you doing, bud?
Good. How are you, my friend? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Been following you throughout the coronavirus. I know we've had many conversations about it from the beginning, the middle, and then of course we'll be talking as we get to. I don't know if we're at the end. I just say we're in the middle, the middle-ish part. I can't say we're done because we're all locked down. So it's hard to say that we're. So first off, we'll get into your book again. Shameless plugging of your book. We'll get to your book in a second, but let's talk about the coronavirus. Obviously, you have some amazing insights into this and your opinions on how everything's been done. And I like coming to folks like you who actually went to school and can speak on different aspects of the coronavirus. Now, I'm not saying that you are a freaking SARS expert by any means, but you at least have some more insight than our friends who are Google University graduates. And by that, I mean they can type in coronavirus and become an expert by just reading Google. So what's some of your thoughts on how this whole thing has gone down with the coronavirus?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting situation, isn't it? We've been in it in the US for a number of months now. I think that every aspect of the coronavirus is mostly still a question mark, unfortunately, but we're getting more and more data which helps us understand what this virus means to us, how susceptible we are, and how it should affect our lives. We certainly know how it has affected our lives, but I think that many people are beginning to question now whether what we did was right, how we move forward, and what this means for us in the future. What will be the new normal? I think that the number that most people are asking about now with regard to coronavirus is the case fatality rate. How many people is this going to kill? How deadly is this virus? And in the beginning, there were models from Neil Ferguson at the Royal College of London suggesting that the virus could kill millions of people in that country or millions of people in the United States. And a lot of the lockdown efforts in the UK and in the US were based upon his models. And again, the key word there is model. And there were many epidemiologic models that tried to predict how virulent, how many people would be affected, and how many people would die from this virus. I think what we're pretty clearly learning at this point is that this SARS-CoV-2 is a lot less harmful than we thought it was. Now, this is not to invalidate the suffering of any individual. This is not to be crass or to be insensitive to anyone who knows people who have died. But as a physician and as someone in the health space who looks at these things, I think it's important that we take a step back, try and get a 15,000-foot view or a 50,000-foot view, and try and understand how we move forward and really get the most accurate perspective that we can on what this virus means to us. And I think we're seeing repeatedly now that there's a large proportion of people who come in contact with coronavirus who don't show up positive for the virus with reverse transcriptase PCR, so RT-PCR testing, or even antibody testing. Of the people who are positive, a large proportion, the majority, appear to be asymptomatic. And of those who are symptomatic, which is the main number that we're seeing now in the Worldometer and other meters that we're tracking, the majority are recovering just fine. And those who are suffering greatest are those with severe comorbidities, primarily comorbidities surrounding insulin resistance, chronic illness, diabetes, prediabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, these type of things, and those who are extremely elderly who probably have kind of a frail constitution in general, not really nutritionally replete, they don't have a great diet. And a lot of people who are elderly also have underlying insulin resistance and prediabetes without knowing it. So what we're seeing pretty clearly is that in the younger age groups, this is not a very virulent virus. It's not killing nearly as many people, and it's mostly targeting the elderly. Now, what does that mean for us? It means in general, this virus is much less deadly than we thought it was. And in fact, Neil Ferguson at the Royal College of London has now resigned. And many of the people who were originally looking at his models are having to admit that there was a mass, gross overestimation of the reach of this virus and the number of people that it would kill. Now, it's caused a lot of deaths in the United States, but again, we have to take a step back and think about what it means for us and how it will play out long term. I think that every season in the United States, we get respiratory viruses that are going to target those who are most susceptible. We've had flu seasons in the past that have killed a similar number of people to coronavirus. One of the things that looking at the data that's misleading is that this coronavirus appears to be more transmissible than a flu. We call this number the R0, or the number of people that you will infect if you are infected with the virus. For coronavirus, most people are estimating that this is 3 to 5, whereas for the flu, it's probably closer to 1 or even less than that. 1.2 is the number most people estimate for the flu. So I think what we're seeing here is the coronavirus is perhaps slightly more virulent than the flu. A lot of the estimates are saying the case fatality rate is going to end up being less than 0.5, which is on the same order of magnitude as the flu. But that part of the problem is that it compressed a lot of the deaths into a small amount of space because it was more transmissible. Everyone talks about flattening the curve and not overwhelming the healthcare system. Well, in some places this was important, and in many other places the healthcare system has not been overwhelmed at all, and most of our hospitals are a third or half occupied, and we're furloughing doctors. So there's a lot of heterogeneity in terms of how it played out across the US. So it's quite a complex picture, but I think that the takeaways at this point on May the 10th, 2020, May the 11th, 2020, are that the case fatality rate looks to be much lower than we thought. I do not think millions will die from this virus. I do not think hundreds of thousands will die from this virus. It's tragic that anyone is dying from a respiratory illness like the flu or coronavirus, but this happens every year. And I think that what we'll see when this is all said and done is that the numbers will be in the same order of magnitude as the flu. And many of the models predicting 10x or 100x deaths were wrong, and that the lockdown is something that we should take a really sobering look at how to end, because a lot of people are now debating that it's doing us any good. Now, I just want to clarify one other point here, which is that when we're talking about flattening the curve, the real glass ceiling that we're trying not to exceed is overwhelming the healthcare system. And if in the area that someone is living, if the healthcare system is not overwhelmed, then it's time to ease the lockdowns, because not easing the lockdowns prolongs this. And somehow in the last few weeks to month, the ideas around social distancing and the lockdown have morphed into somehow that we're going to beat this virus, or that we're going to avoid being exposed. And that's really not how viruses work. You know, most physicians can tell you this, that a respiratory virus is going to spread through the majority of the population no matter what we do, which is the main criticism against the lockdowns at this point, that if you look at the temporal spacing, if you look at the occurrence of lockdowns throughout countries, it's not very clear that they did a whole lot. Comparing countries that locked down early and locked down strictly versus those that didn't, there's not a huge difference in the mortality rates, the number of people that are dying per capita. I think for most countries, the cat was already out of the bag. The virus had already spread through a lot of the population when the lockdowns happened. And at that point, there's no real point to them. And then you're going to suffer all of the economic hardship without actually getting any of the benefits of a lockdown, which were really only intended to prevent the healthcare system from being overwhelmed. But if you're talking absent healthcare system overwhelm, lockdowns are not really saving lives. It's very hard to make that case. And I just want to make sure that people understand that the main idea of a lockdown is the healthcare system. It's not to reduce the overall number of people who are going to be exposed to the virus, because that's going to remain the same. That's determined really only by the R0, the transmissibility of the virus, and the health of your population. And so if the same number of people are exposed to the virus, ultimately the same number of people will suffer greatly with the virus. And then we're kind of back to square one, which is, if the healthcare system isn't overwhelmed, how do we create the strongest immune system? How do we stand strongest in the face of any infectious disease? And I wish that more of the mainstream media conversation were that, rather than the pretty much pervasive fear-mongering that I see happening now.
Absolutely. That amazing insight. I had my head down and I was writing away. That was, it's interesting to get that data and those insights, right? Because even this morning, they released a new number for what we should expect by August, right? And so far, none of the numbers are tracking that way. I don't want to get caught up just talking. I do before we have to go. I do want to talk about your book, because I've read it. I'm a huge fan. And I know you wrote it, so people will read it and follow it and do it. Not talk about coronavirus all the time. We should talk about good things, because this is a great diet. I know you're a fan of it. Obviously, you wrote it, but I mean, you've proven the concept works. And I know our good buddy, Mr. Rogan, he did it, followed it. So before you go, briefly, we'll keep this brief. Tell us what's inside this beautiful, beautiful book that I've read cover to cover. You can see I've worn out the pages. I've been reading it so much. But the Carnivore Code. Let's talk about this real fast, because dieting and getting your body beach ready, because you can go to the beach. You don't want to be stuck in your couch looking like a freaking Ben Stiller back in the day, all big and chubby. I mean, how do you talk about this book real fast?
Well, I think the book is a very relevant part of the coronavirus conversation as well. And that was the point that I ended on in my previous rant, that, hey, look, we're all going to be exposed to infectious things in our lives, whether it's SARS-CoV-2, next year's influenza, this year's influenza, MRSA, all sorts of infectious things. are going to be coming across our laps and noses and lungs and GI tracts. And the conversation in the mainstream media needs to be not so much about how we hide from a virus or how we avoid exposure to a virus. That's important, especially for those who are elderly and susceptible. But let's think about what makes us healthy or not. Let's think about what determines how well our immune system responds to the virus, because it's very clear that some people are asymptomatic with this virus. Some people do very well, don't even have symptoms, and some people die or suffer greatly. So what's the difference? I strongly believe the difference is our health, our fundamental metabolic health, our nutritional health. And that was the reason I wrote the book. And I wrote the book before coronavirus. But when we are talking about where humans get nutrients, how we become healthy individuals, it's clear to me, and the message that I'm trying to share with the population is that, look, animal foods, animal meat, animal organs have been wrongly vilified. The data to suggest that these are harmful for us is meaningless, misinterpreted epidemiology. And if you look at the interventional studies, they are completely exonerating toward red meat. It is a very healthy food to eat. And we've been so misled. And people are missing out on key nutrients in red meat, white meat, all animal foods that are going to make their immune system stronger. And if we are missing those nutrients, then we are not going to be as strong as possible. If you look at who is suffering most greatly with coronavirus, it's those who are insulin resistant. How do we become insulin resistant? It's by eating processed carbohydrates, processed sugars, and vegetable oils. If you want to avoid those foods and get the nutrient-rich foods that your body needs to have a strong immune system and get the nutrients that everyone's talking about right now, zinc and magnesium and manganese and selenium, those are found in animal foods. Creatine, carnitine, vitamin K2. This is how we become strong individuals. These are not these are not nutrients found in plants. These are nutrients found in animal foods. And these animal foods have been incorrectly demonized. We need to remember or realize, and this is why the book is written, it makes the case that these foods are good for us. They always have been a part of our diet as humans. And they were the key thing that changed the evolution of humans, that made us into the smart individuals we are now with big brains. And the other side of the equation is that plants exist on a spectrum of toxicity. They don't want to get eaten. We're familiar with this when we think about gluten and other plant toxins, but I think that rabbit hole of toxins goes much more deep than people realize and can be negatively affecting them. So a carnivore diet is about understanding that animal foods are incredibly nutritious and an integral, indispensable part of any human diet, and that plant foods exist on a toxicity spectrum, and removing them from the diet either partially or entirely is leading to massive health improvements in people who were stuck with autoimmune disease or inflammatory disease or rheumatoid arthritis, all these type of diseases, or insulin resistance and diabetes. So this is all connected. It's how we become healthier humans so we can live more productive, more quality, more enjoyable lives. And when something like coronavirus comes along, we are immunologically strong because we have the nutrients and the nutrition at our baseline that makes us that way. And to ignore that is to ignore what I think is the most important conversation in this pandemic.
Outstanding, Paul. We thank you for coming on and giving us that. We have to have you back on. That was just, we went down that rabbit hole and it was beyond informative. So we appreciate you coming on. Remember, folks, you could go on to Amazon or wherever you buy your books and you can grab the Carnivore code. If I put it in camera shot, Carnivore code. If you have any questions, you can follow the good doctor here at thecarnivoremd.com and on his social media handles, which happen to be the same thing, Carnivore Doc. Carnivore MD on Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube, Paul Saladino MD. So thank you, Paul, for coming on the show, and
Pleasure.
See you real soon.
I can't wait. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, bud. So that's our show. Before we go, I do want to shout out to two people. One, this morning we found out from his son, Ben Stiller, that his father, if you're a Seinfeld fan, passed away. I love comedy, and his father, Ben Stiller's father, Jerry Stiller, was a hilarious human being. So we lost Jerry Stiller today, just natural causes, but a funny human being nonetheless. If you're a Seinfeld fan, he will be missed. And also, on a personal note, a good friend of mine and dear client, I found out he passed away at the age of 28. Stefan Inario, you all will always be in my memory, buddy. And this show today is dedicated to you. If you're not familiar with Stefan Inario, go check him out. He was on Liquid Lunch just two short months ago after coming back. Cancer got this young man at age of 28. So we have that. But the show goes on. I know Stefan would love to hit the show to go on. He was supposed to be a guest, so damn it, I'm angry at him because that man, he wrote some good books. Let me tell you, Hard Times Creates Hard Men. Go check out that book. If you want a copy, let me know. Send a message, put it in there. I'll send you a copy. I have several editions of it here with me. I'd love to send you out a copy so you could read it. It's a great book. But tomorrow is Tuesday, and we've got another great show for you. As always on Tuesdays, we got the big man, Chef Clemenza, is going to be back. And he's going to be in the kitchen. And oh, wait till you see what the man's making. We're going to have smell-o-vision. We're going to have to create it between now and then, 24 hours to get this done. We also have Anna David, who's going to be on to talk about recovery. And speaking of recovery, I definitely know you will know our next guest. Her name is coming on tomorrow, Alexis Haynes. Alexis Haynes was part of the Bling Bling crew back in 2009 that broke into a bunch of celebrities' houses, had the ultimate bad day. I shit you not. That is a bad day when they make a movie out of your bad day. She since has recovered, owns a recovery center with her husband and 2 beautiful children. She'll be on to talk about recovery. It's going to be something that a lot of people are dealing with as we go through this. And also tomorrow, we have Mr. Stephen Brian Brown, who's going to come on and talk about the dark side of YouTube censorship, something we all should be aware of. As always, we want to thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the show, please subscribe, share, click that little notification button so you will always see when we are on air. I want to thank you from behalf of myself and my team, the executive producer of the show, Miss Madison Mitchell and Butch Seltzer, and always the man in the control room, pushing all the levers and all the buttons and making everything go, producer Kris. We want to thank you for tuning in. As always, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.